got to be fucking kidding me. Why are there so many British YouTubers? It's weird. Yeah. It's a door knock keeper here. A cis male. White male. These are corn dogs, real corn dogs, because they're gluten-free. So this is actually cornbread. So it's closer to being a corn dog than ever before. You wanna know how I got this corn dog? At Walmart. Safeway. These are so fire. I'm never buying normal corn dogs again. These ones are so much better. Because I fucking love cornbread. Yum. I'm chowing. I think my phone's gonna fall, but yep, there it goes. Now it should be good. Unless my calculations were incorrect. I'm eating vegetables also. Eat your vegetables, because they're important. Your brain doesn't function as well without vegetables. And you may find yourself in a situation where you need to think. Let me tell you, thinking is important. If you have internal dialogue, or at least for me, half of my life has been spent thinking. Just as much time as... No, I think when I'm awake. Well, when I'm playing video games, I don't really think as much. I kind of just think out loud. That's what my commentary is. I'm just saying what I would be saying in my head. Mixed with stuff I say out loud. So it's like a combination of the two. But, you know. Yo. Look, guys. Nobody knows what the Doorknob Keeler is about. Okay? You don't know what's going on here. Okay? Hell no. I already have a mod. He's the best mod in the whole world. His name's Toon. There ain't no better mod than him. Okay? But, anyway. Let me tell you. Nobody gets the Doorknob Keeler. Nobody understands. You know? I don't get why people subscribe to me. You know what I mean? You know, it doesn't make any sense to me because nobody seems to get it. you know? Nobody seems to understand what the doorknob keebler is. Or, you know, my vibe. You know, wherever I go, I'm somewhat weird. Or regarded as, you know, I've never been in a situation where someone has been like, you're a normal human being, and I feel like, you know, you're a person I understand. You know what I mean? Well, maybe back in treatment. Let me think. Think about. I feel like I understand my friend Taylor, and he understands me a little bit. Although, we definitely do have differently functioning brains. I've found that his brain works very similarly to mine. Tomb also, but Tomb doesn't have internal dialogue whatsoever, which I can't even comprehend. How could you not have words going on inside of your head? That doesn't make any sense. I don't mean like voices, you know. Oh, I'm eating tater tots and vegetables and corn dogs. I'm gonna clip that. But anyways, I feel like, from what he's told me, you know, Tomb doesn't have any internal dialogue, which I can't even comprehend that. I could never understand that. Not having, well, I understand thought feelings, you know, feelings that kind of say something. I kind of understand that, so that's probably all he feels. It's just feelings that say something. But even then, to me, I just don't get it. Says he doesn't think in pictures. So how could you even have a thought feeling if there is no picture or word associated with it? Perhaps it is just the knowledge of what you were thinking. No, I'm just, I'm comparing brains. My friend Taylor's brain, I'm comparing his brain with my brain, and my friend Tomb's brain with my brain. For me, okay, let's probably get my brain off the thing here. For me, in my mind, things are all visual, all words, noises, just everything, you know? There's nothing I can't, like, there's not a human expression I can't replicate in my mind, which is not it's a completely weird thing, you know? That's a thing most people can do, but, you know. I have, like, the standard model, you know what I mean? But then, you know, I talked to Tomb, and he doesn't even have internal dialogue or internal pictures or anything. He just feels feelings and thoughts. He feels his thoughts. Which I have felt my thoughts before, but you know, that feeling just leads to things appearing in my head. So it's just like, you know, it leads to like mental imagery. Oh, well, I mean, we're all like, there's not a single person on this world that's not like everybody else. You know what I mean? Everybody's like each other. There is no uniqueness. The only thing is, the only thing that makes you like everybody else is thinking, I don't want to be like everybody else. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people always talk about being unique. I'm not like everybody else. Like, come on now. Everybody thinks that. You know? So that's what, that's what makes someone like everybody else is thinking I'm not like everybody else. What also makes, I don't know, everybody is like everybody. At the end of the day, I just think in metacognition, you know what I mean? Like, I try to think about what people feel, what they're, I have my perspective, what I can see, right? And feel in the air, just like the air temperature, the things that go on in my brain. Like, and that's all I really know. When I look at somebody, I see another person. I see a figure. I don't see, that's all I see is a figure that anybody sees. And I just want to know the weirdest thing, the most interesting thing in the world to me would be seeing what somebody else sees. Seeing what somebody else sees. Maybe one day we'll have the technology to like see out of other people's eyes for a second. It can just be something you can just try, Like, you can really see what another person sees. But, we don't have that right now. Because, when people say things like, not everybody has the same red, you know what I mean? I mean, it's pretty much the same, It's pretty much the same red. But at the end of the day, there's something different about it, That's what I would like to see, But no, the same goes for just thinking about. That hurt my mouth. Damn, these things are sharp. But to have a thought that isn't the way that I would think it is just like incomprehensible for obvious reasons. So I'm always thinking about what, the other person could possibly be feeling or thinking. And when it's obvious, But sorry, just like a cut in my mouth. But, casual thinking is a lot different, I'm not really thinking anything right now, I'm just kind of like casually, drifting through the moment. Not really much going on in my mind unless I really make something go on in my mind. Because I'm kind of already speaking it. But sometimes I'll just like have random bursts of thoughts because I don't really think intentionally as much. When I was talking with my friend Mud about quantum probabilities, let me make something clear. I'm not a scientist at all, right? I don't know the math. I don't know anything about it. I just know terminology and context. But, I like to talk about things I don't understand because it's very interesting to me, just to kind of get a really basic idea of what I'm thinking about. And there's people that I know who know more about me, who know more about those things than I do. So, me and my friend, Taylor, got in a pretty interesting debate. It didn't get heated. It was just a friendly debate about what nothing is. Right. And it was like we were talking about, you know, if there were no universe or anything, right? And there'd still be. My argument was that there would just be nothing, but you know, that doesn't mean that, there isn't some level of like a space. But in this case, it's like a nothing. It's just nothing. So it's just, there is nothing to see, nothing to feel or anything, but, because it was kind of an argument about whether the universe is like the only, the universe is everything, and there's nothing outside of the universe. That was kind of the argument, none of which can be proven, but still fun to talk about. And my argument was like, look, man, I feel like there'd just be a void outside of it. You know what I mean? And that makes sense to me. His point was like, there'd be nothing. And I was like, yeah, I agree with you, but, nothing is a void of anything. So, we didn't really come to an agreement on that one, but, I may have gotten more than I can eat here. I might eat it, but, I don't know. I just, I don't really, I don't know. I can really feel that there's a finite amount of things that I'm able to think about, because it's just kind of like based on what I know. I'm just thinking about what I know. So it's like, I haven't had a new idea in a while, Ace PJs was like a once in a lifetime thing, because that was a new idea, but it's not new anymore. I've had it for a long time now. It's my second channel, and at the time, that was really interesting to me, because it was like I actually had another just unique idea, and I mean unique from the rest of what's already inside, not like unique as in totally new and original, It wasn't inspired by anything, but what kind of was, it's inspired by a little bit of my desire, and I don't know, blue has become a very complicated thing now. Blue's a really complicated thing now, because I don't always need the idea of blue, but I can't go without the idea of blue. So, I just feel more comfortable with even with the ability to interact with blue in some way or another, which is, if you want to know what blue is, you know, you can go look at my second channel, because I'm not going to go through the hell of explaining that right now. You know, there's all sorts of informational shit over there. A lot of drawings in the community section over there, which I did a lot of while I was on shrooms. But you know, man, I went through a phase with shrooms, because, you know, that shit just is crazy, you know. Let me tell you though, from my experience, I had like, the only spiritual thinking I did was pretty, like, you know, like, attention based. It wasn't really like, it didn't really feel like a spiritual event. It felt like I was just super high on mushrooms, scribbling in my notebook. No. It didn't feel spiritual. Oh, and acid didn't feel spiritual at all. That just felt like a crazy drug. Like, a lot of people talk about these psychedelics so spiritually, and I feel like that's just because of their, you know, interpretation. Really, their interpretation of the experience can have a lot to do with what you experience in general, or just what you believe in, you know. Me, I don't really believe in much religiously, you know. I'm not really religious at all. I'm agnostic, so I had a pretty basic trip, you know. It was all colorful and crazy and wonderful. There was no, like, you know, talking to God or anything like that, because that's just ridiculous, and that's the way I think about that. But for someone who doesn't think that was ridiculous, maybe they would have a, like, godly experience. But, you know, I hate the fusion of religion and drugs, because it's annoying, you know. It's really annoying, because, you know, drugs aren't a miracle. It's poison that makes you fucking, like, it's just poison that fucks with you. You know what I mean? Because a lot of it is defense mechanisms that, you know, the same thing as capsaicin, pretty much, you know. But, like, a little different. I could just hop from one subject to another for the whole time here. It's like so much inside I just randomly think about, you know. Of course, now my mind goes blank. No, but back to the original subject. I've seen a lot of my friends' brain interaction. And sometimes I feel like I understand what their process is. But, you know, the only thing I really have is what they tell me. You know what I mean? It's not like I can understand what their thought process was behind everything. But, you know, I can take the knowledge of how things work on the inside for me, and I can sort of try to apply that to their body language and their verbalization, their talking, and you know, to try and get a real understanding of what they're saying below, like, the surface, you know? Because to me, that's interesting. Just trying to understand exactly what went through a person's mind before they did even something simple. Because it's interesting, you know? What was that person thinking? Who fucking knows, you know? I can figure it out. You know, I'm very literal. You know what I mean? So when someone says something that isn't as literal, that kind of pisses me off. Because I'm like, you know, I'm very literal, you know? I don't say things that mean something else most of the time. Because I see that as superficial behavior. And I don't like I hate things that are superficial. You know what I mean? Absolutely hate things that are superficial. Drives me insane. You know? You know, because for me, I'm very practical, very literal. You know? If you don't say exactly what you mean, I'm probably going to misunderstand it. You know? Or if we're like having a conflict, I can, you know, sometimes this is kind of a problem for me. Sometimes I can use this. I figured out what it's called. It's like, trying to figure out what it is. Oh, weaponized incompetence. You know? You know, someone will like say something that's not, you know, that I'm supposed, you know, it's just, I don't know. You don't know, but that's just what I say. That's my clutch. It's just like the word like, but, you know, I'm thinking. For example, you know, what's a thing that's not very literal that someone could say? Say someone says that back in treatment, you know, there was a lot of like incompetence that I was doing on purpose, you know. For example, I think, man, I'm very literal, so it's hard to think about situations. It's hard to think about an example of what would be something that wouldn't be like a literal thing that someone said. You know, say someone says like clean the bathroom, right? But instead they mean kind of the bathroom in the laundry room, right? Because they consider that part of the bathroom. And, you know, and I don't know, maybe I forgot to look at my, well, say I didn't forget to look at my chore chart and they just said clean the bathroom, but I kind of know it's my extra, you know, the laundry room is kind of grouped up with the bathroom. I will, you know, I this isn't what I do, but in this case, as an example, I would just clean the bathroom. and probably stop right at the edge of the doorway. You know what I mean? Or, you know, I don't know. You get what I mean. You know, not doing the literal thing. Because I hate when people aren't literal with what they say. I hate when someone says something and then they actually mean something else, because that's annoying. You know, that you're not saving any time, being unproductive and frustrating. And that's something my friend Taylor has kind of come to realize. So I just don't like when people aren't literal. I know I already said that, but it's probably one of my biggest pet peeves. You know? And on top of the fact that if I get frustrated to any extent, I can be really spiteful. So, you know, and antagonistic. I really like to antagonize the shit out of people. I don't like to. I do it when I'm pissed, you know? Because I kind of get mad on the inside without any sort of like a sign. You know, say someone says something that I don't like or says something that frustrates me. This is probably a good example of when it was not, you know, when it was worse. You know, if I get mad, then I just kind of antagonize the shit out of them, you know? Maybe give them a snarky response to something. Know what I mean? They can be really antagonistic and play a lot of games. And kind of be a smartass sometimes. Especially with authoritative people. I hate authority, even though I shouldn't. I have a lot of authority issues, you know. I don't like to be told what to do. I like to be reminded. And that's not good. Because, you know, I get fucking smartassy and snarky. That was weird. I jumped from a lot of different subjects to another. But I'm about to stream Modern Warfare.